What's up everyone, Mike here from The Art of Guitar. I had somebody who had been playing for a few months ask me the other day, what is the very least they should know to feel competent on the guitar? And you have to remember, whatever I teach today is just going to be very basic foundational stuff that I feel like everybody should focus on in the beginning. And then from there it can branch off into any level that you choose, depending on your level of dedication and how much work you're willing to put towards it and how much time. So today I'm just going to show you the very minimum you should know so that you don't feel like you completely suck. And when you're in situations where you're with other musicians, you'll at least be able to hold your own up to a certain point, okay? So the first thing I feel you should be able to do, I'm not going to be talking about how to hold a guitar or hold a pick or how to sit and all that stuff. I'm just talking about playing wise today. But before we get to that, the only thing I will say is learn how to tune your guitar, either by using like a snark tuner, for example, one of these clip-on deals. These work really well for beginners, but also have a backup plan in case you run out of batteries or in case you just don't have your tuner with you. Make sure you learn how to do the 5th fret method to tune. That's when you see people going like this. Okay, it's one way to tune, and it's using your ear, and it's very important to at least have one organic way of tuning like that. So we go in depth with this on the website. Today I'm not going to be teaching anything. Today is just a demonstration, if anything, and like a list for you to follow. In order to pick up new songs and be able to learn things off the internet or off books or magazines, you're going to want to learn how to read tab. And it's a very simple thing once you really get into it, how to read tab. It's just numbers and you follow the strings, and it's actually pretty simple. So don't neglect learning how to read tab, very important. A lot of people who start guitar lessons think they'll never be good because they can't read music. They always say that. But if you just learn how to read tab, it's not like reading notation, don't worry. You can learn it really quick and you'll thank me for it. Also, be able to read chord charts. If you can do this, then you can easily pick up a ton of new chords and learn the basic ones that I'm going to talk about today and beyond. And you can also play pretty much any other stringed instrument. Like I had to pick up the mandolin pretty quick, and because I know how to read chord charts, I was able to pick up a lot of the basic chords almost instantly. So I highly recommend being able to read a chord chart. Okay, on this site we preach the cage system all the time, but let's apply that right now to your basic list of what I feel like you should be able to know, or what you should know and what you should be able to play. And that's going to be take the caged system, so spell caged, C-A-G-E-D. So if we talk about C being our first shape, you should definitely know C. You should know A, the second form, and G, the third form, E, the fourth form, and D, the fifth form. Those are going to be your major chords. So one more time, C, A, G, E, D. Start with those 5 basic shapes. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to start to do minor versions of a few of them. So in the beginning, make sure you can do the second form in the minor shape, so A minor. The fourth form in the minor shape, E minor. And the fifth form in minor shape, the D minor. The other two aren't as important right away, so make sure you get at least those down. And then be able to do all 5 of the forms with 7 chords. So be able to go C7, A7, G7, E7, and D7. And for a bonus, just so you can play a lot of songs, throw in the B7. That one could be a little difficult at first because it's 4 fingers, but it's worth learning. Then you can play Hey Jude if you want to. Once you have the open chords down, make sure you have at least 3 strum patterns. And yes, by saying a strum pattern, I'm also talking about 4 downstrokes. So let's say you learn a G chord and you can go. It's a good start because then you can start to follow along with songs. You just have to learn how to switch chords in time. That's a little bit further down the road. And then try to throw in a second strum pattern. Just mix it up a little bit. Let's go down, 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 up, down. That's an excellent one to get you doing some upstrokes. And then the third one I would recommend is what we call the John Mellencamp strum, and that's where we go down, down, up, down. It seems like a lot of his songs have this in it. Notice my arm just keeps moving. But like I said, we're not teaching today, just showing you demonstrations. Okay, sometimes people neglect this and they always regret it. Take, for example, the 6th string, E. Be able to name all the strings first of all, that's important. E, A, D, G, B, E. And then be able to count up at least the 6th string and the 5th string. So your 6th string, the big fat one here, we're going to start and call it E. You should be able to go F, G, A, B, C, D, E. Very important to be able to do that, at least on the 6th string. Add the 5th string if possible. So we have open A, B, C, D, E, F, G, octave A. If you could do that, it's going to make the next couple of examples very playable and understandable. If not, you're going to feel lost all the time. So it's going to take a little bit of music theory to understand the spacing between the notes, but it's well worth it. And then when you get really good at it, you can learn a couple tricks to apply to all the other strings. And pretty soon you'll know the entire fretboard. Okay, speaking of the next step, what you could do now, let's say you know where the G note is on the 6th string, right here, 3rd fret. Now learn how to do power chords, and that's just a 2-note chord that looks like this. It's used in almost every style of music, especially rock. So if you can move this around and actually name the chord you're doing, you're going to have it made. So we'll play, for example, starting here on the 3rd fret of the 6th string, G, we're going to create a power chord shape. It's really just the next string over and 2 frets up. Sounds like that. Then move it up 2 frets, we'll call that A power chord. Move it up 2 frets, B. Move it up 1 fret, C, and so on. You should be able to move it all over the place. You can, even if you know the 5th string notes, move it to, let's say, the 5th string 3rd fret, C, power chord, D power chord. Even if you move it up 1/2 step, you have D sharp. Remember, a whole step on the guitar is 2 frets distance. 1/2 step is only 1 fret difference. So that's a quick thing to throw in there. You have to know that stuff. Next, you're going to want to expand the power chords to actual bar chords. And we're only going to do a couple in the beginning for your foundation, and that's going to be based off of the 4th form, the E shape, and the 2nd form, the A shape. So when you learn to turn these, let's go back to the 4th form, and I'm going to learn how to bar it so that I can move it all over the neck if I want to, up and down. So this is just one shape based off of that E shape, and we're going to bar it, and now we can play any chord we want as far as major goes. So we can go G major, G sharp, A major, A sharp major, all that, all the way across with one shape. It's great. And then if you want to, learn how to change the chord just a little bit to make it just a little bit of a different sound. So in this case, we're going to lift up our middle finger, and now we have a minor shape. So based off of the E minor shape, we're still in the 4th form, moving it around, G minor, A minor, B minor, C minor. You see the power of just removing one finger, all of a sudden you have all the minor chords now. Now if you go back to major and just remove the pinky, now we have the 7 chords. So we can have G7, A7, B7, and so on. So you can see how that could be really helpful if you just want to stay with one shape and move it around. If you want to do stuff like... A lot of songs are based off of that shape, okay? And then learn the 2nd form as well, because it really complements the 4th form. So the 2nd form shape is based off the A chord shape, and we learn how to bar it, and we can move it around. That's one way to do it. Some people just prefer to bar across like this. That's the major version. You could do the minor and the 7 chord. You could do so much. You could do stuff like... So imagine the confidence you would have if you knew how to play those shapes in any of the notes that you want, because you know the neck now. So very important to be able to have both of those aspects down. Learn this shape. Okay, with that shape, you're going to be able to do minor pentatonic scale, which is going to allow you to jam with other people and actually make up some leads and some melodies. And then contained in that one shape are the minor pentatonic and the major pentatonic. So I'm not going to go into detail of how to figure that out from just the one shape and how to really calculate it, but on the site we go into in depth with it. And what's cool about it is you don't have to learn more than this one shape at first. It just depends where you start, depends on what you call it, okay? So you could play anything from G minor pentatonic to C major pentatonic to E major, to F minor. So it's a very adaptable scale shape, And it's very flexible, I should say, and it allows you to play both in the minor world and the major world. So get to know that shape. People ask, should I learn the entire major scale, the do, re, mi? And I always say, well, of course, if you want to learn it, go ahead. It's more important to me in the beginning that you're able to do it on one string at least. So let's say we're here on the first string, 3rd fret. I'm hoping everybody will be able to do this. It's vital that you can see the spacing between the notes. So if you start here on G, you can see it's a whole step, 2 frets, remember, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. That's the formula for a major scale. Now before you play major scales going this way, across the strings, I recommend doing it at least on one string. And if somebody tells you to solo in G major, for example, you could start here on the G note, and you could just play the spacing that I already told you. It might not sound like much, but with a little bit of elaborating on those notes, you could sometimes come up with great solo parts or, like I said, melody parts as well. Now, when you start to play scales, you're going to want to know at least 4 little tricks, techniques, to be able to make them come alive. We were just talking about soloing a little bit. Let's go back to the minor pentatonic concept. With this shape, what I want you to practice are what are called hammer-ons, and that's where you play a lower note with your first finger, and we're going to hammer on the higher note on the same string with a ring finger. So you just pluck the first note and hammer down to achieve the next note. The opposite of that is if you pluck the high note and pull off. I like to call it plucking off because you're going to kind of pluck the string as you come off. You get a pull off. Put those together. You get some really great techniques, really great sounds. Another thing you want to be able to do is slide. So to be able to play a note and slide up the frets till you get to the next note that you want. Notice I'm using just the minor pentatonic shape for this as well. Slides are great. So be able to slide and also be able to bend the notes. So until you can get some decent bends down, you're not really going to have the best vibrato. That's my experience. So if you could start to bend the note, just play with it. It doesn't even have to be a full bend like that. It could just be partial. It's totally fine. If you could do a partial bend, vibrato just seems to happen later. But you have to get the idea of bending down. Like once again, we go into depth with this, but if you just take your fingers and line them up like this on one string, and then give a little pressure against the fret, the actual metal bar here, and ride that string up. That's how you achieve a bend. If you let go of the pressure, it's going to die. You don't want that, or your finger's going to slip off. That's always bad. So just keep the right amount of pressure to keep the string touching the fret as it rides up and down. You're going to get some great bends. You could use your pinky too. You could use any finger you want. Even the first finger. But I recommend the ring finger first for your foundational knowledge because it's the strongest one when it comes to bending and it's the most used for most people. And the last thing I believe everyone should know at the very least is how to mute with both hands. So the fretting hand can do a lot of muting on its own. So here's an example. Let's say you're doing a power chord on the 5th string, 5th fret, and then your ring finger is going to be on the 4th string, 7th fret. Well, you want those notes to come through obviously because you're fretting them, but you don't want the other strings to happen. A lot of people think you just have to pick the 2 strings that you're fretting, but it's not true. A lot of guitar players will just go crazy and you'll only hear the notes that they're fretting. Here's how it's done. You take your index finger in this case and just barely touch the string above it. So this is the 6th string right here. That's touching. So it's killing the big fat string. It's playing a note on the 5th string, and then your ring finger is playing a note on the 4th string. But your ring finger is also touching the string just below it, physically below it, the 3rd string. So it's dead. Then the next 2 strings are killed as well by the 1st finger. See how it's actually barring across a little bit and touching them? It's not pressing in. It's not making noise. It's just killing them. So now I'm only playing 2 notes, but I'm muting everything around it. So even if I strum all 6 strings, I only get the 2 that I'm looking for. Huge advantage when you get to that point. Another thing to work on is picking hand muting. And when I do this, what I like to do is palm mute most of the time. I take the side of my palm and I put it where the bridge meets the strings. And then I'm able to make things sound more muted. And and so on. Without muting, it would sound like. Sometimes you really want to choke things off like that. Give it a nice tight sound. Another form of picking hand muting is just setting your hand on the strings to kill them. So you could go. It's a great sound, isn't it? Just killing the strings. It gives it kind of a rhythmic bounce. Okay, so I advise you take those 12 concepts and work on them and get them as solid as you can. That way your foundation is strong, and then you'll feel, like I said, way more confident when you play with other people, and you'll have a nice foundation in which to even grow from, so you can actually go to the higher levels. But you want to make sure you have your foundation filled in, okay? So take those 12 things and work on them as much as you can, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and we'll catch you soon. Thanks, bye.